bringing you news and information from around the Pacific Command. This is your AFN Pacific Report.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of AFN Pacific Report. I'm Senior Airman Therese Garnier. After weeks of review, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel announced on Tuesday that most of the department's civilian employees will be required to take 11 furlough days beginning July 8th, one per week through the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th. During a town hall meeting in Virginia, Hagel said the department was able to cut in half the original amount of proposed furlough days because of other efforts to deal with the sequester-induced budget shortfall. While the secretary was pleased at being able to reduce the number of furlough days, he couldn't predict what might happen with fiscal year 2014.
I can't guarantee you that we're not going to be in some kind of a similar situation next year. I'm not predicting it. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. But what we're doing here is we're just trying to survive and get through this fiscal year. I would hope, but you can't run an operation, you can't lead an operation, you can't have so many people dependent and the country dependent on leadership based on hope. I hope that we will be in a better situation all the way around. I've got some confidence that will occur. But I'm not going to stand here and promise you that it won't. So we're dealing with what we've got to deal with in front of us right now. We're all trying to get to some high ground for FY 2014, which, as you know, begins October 1st, and then we'll see.
Employees set to be furloughed will begin receiving written notifications June 5th. The USS George Washington Carrier Strike Group will have a special guest ship joining it when it gets underway from Yokosuka for its next deployment.
Line handlers stand on the pier in Yokosuka preparing to receive the latest ship to join Carrier Strike Group 5. But something seems different. This ship is Australian?
HMAS Sydney has arrived today in Yokosuka to take part in an embed event with the US 7th Fleet.
The Australian frigate will embed with USS George Washington for the next 3 months and receive valuable training on the U.S. Navy's Aegis combat system.
The Australian Navy are getting 3 new destroyers. Those destroyers will have the Aegis system on board, so we're very interested to learn air defence procedures. We want to be learning off the best. So if you want to play with the best, you've got to come and join the best.
It's not the first time an Australian ship is embedded with a U.S. strike group, but this will be a new experience for some sailors.
For us, it's very rarely are we working with more than 1 or 2 ships, and so to see at the aircraft carrier and having so many ships, it's just going to be a really eye-opening experience.
HMAS Sydney is scheduled for several multinational maritime exercises and visits to several ports across the Asian Pacific. Petty Officer Kirk Putnam, Yokosuka Naval Base, Japan.
A small training detachment at Yokota Air Base is making a big impact on aircraft maintainers.
These airmen are learning how to take apart and reassemble a T-56 engine, the type of engine that powers Air Force C-130 cargo airplanes. This in-depth, hands-on training arms these aircraft maintainers with the knowledge and skills necessary to do their jobs more effectively and efficiently. That translates to more time in the air for the planes that depend on these engines. This advanced training comes courtesy of a field training detachment located at Yokota.
The reason people attend this class is so that they can get a very slow and detailed process of how to break down an engine into its core components, do the inspections very slowly, and get as much information and detail as possible about the rebuild process.
The detachment consists of instructors like Tech Sergeant Leif Kuster. He knows what approach works best for these students.
By the book, but informative and engaging. I try to get the students involved in the learning as well so that they are more personally invested. Maintainers are typically hands-on learners, so we try to give them exactly what they need to be able to learn and succeed.
As far as Kuster is concerned, this hands-on approach beats trying to teach in a classroom environment.
Teaching hands-on is much easier for maintainers as well as the instructor because I don't have to refer to something on a PowerPoint. I don't have to find the picture. We can hold it in our hands and demonstrate exactly what's going on in a 3D space.
And Kuster understands the level of instruction that is best suited for his student.
He's very informative, he's very patient, he explains everything in the detail that the younger students especially need. He's really attentive to the experience levels of us older members, that we don't need a breakdown of the core basics. We need a little bit heavier information to keep us interested and keep us learning.
The field training detachment at Yokota is one of the smallest units on base. But with instructors like Tech Sergeant Leif Kuster, their small size doesn't diminish the large impact they have on the roughly 200 aircraft maintainers they serve each year. Marine Corporal Crystal Kuster, Yokota Air Base, Japan.
The motto of the Boy Scouts is Be Prepared, so it's not surprising that the Asia West District Boy Scouts of America held a bone marrow registration drive in order to be prepared should anyone need a potentially life-saving transplant.
Service members, their families, and civilians stopped by the Yongsan Exchange to register as possible donors. This registration was comprised of a few simple steps. Read the instructions, rub some cotton swabs in their mouth, and fill out some contact information.
I think it's a great thing. I think everybody should be able to come and actually register. You never know if your fellow soldier or a family member will be in need of your donation.
Lieutenant General John D. Johnson was on hand as well to show his support. He took the opportunity to talk to participants about donation and stressed the importance of bone marrow registration. He also thanked the volunteers and encouraged others to participate in the event.
It's really important to us. I feel about my own personal effort here, I feel good about it. I feel good that I have the opportunity to help somebody potentially down the line that otherwise wouldn't be able to make it if they didn't have help from people that are willing to register. As far as all the soldiers and family members coming down and sign up, I feel great about that.
The event concluded successfully with more than 700 people signed up for a cause that could save lives. Army Sergeant Sam DeLeon, Yongsan, Korea.
Coming up, the season of yellow dust explained. But first, let's take a look around the Pacific Command in today's snapshots.
A pilot climbs into the cockpit of an EA-18 Growler aboard the aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson while underway in the Pacific. A Marine prepares to fire a grenade launcher during fire and maneuver exercises at Camp Hansen, Okinawa. Airmen of the 18th Security Forces Squadron push a Humvee during the 2013 Defenders Challenge at Kadena Air Base. And that's a look around the Pacific Command in today's Snapshots.
The arrival of spring on the Korean Peninsula brings with it all sorts of blooming flowers. It also harkens the arrival of a seasonal health risk.
Springtime in Korea brings beautiful flowers, nice warm air, and dust clouds. The seasonal Asian dust, or hwangsa, affects much of East Asia, but just where does it come from?
The main source reason is over in China. It's the Gobi Desert and the Loess Plateau, which is northern central China up into Mongolia. The elevations of the Gobi Desert and the Loess Plateau, they're like 10,000 feet or so they're really high elevations. So those low pressure systems sweep down through that area, stir up the dust in those regions, and as that low pressure continues to push across Korea, it gets wrapped up in the atmosphere.
Now that we know where it comes from, we need to learn some of the health effects of Asian dust.
In the general population, you can get something as easy as just irritation to your conjunctiva or the white parts of your eyes. You can get irritation to your ears, throat irritation. However, in patients who have known lung problems such as COPD, emphysema, or asthma, they can get exacerbation or worsening of those chronic medical conditions.
Limiting your time outdoors during moderate and high dust levels is key to preventing adverse health effects. Airman First Class Corinne Jones, Yongsan, Korea.
As you saw in the last story, the yellow dust can spread to Japan, so it's quite possible this next group of sailors at Sasebo were shoveling yellow dust along with other items during a recent base cleanup.
Among the many Navy-wide Earth Month events, Fleet Activity Sasebo celebrated with their annual base cleanup.
But we decided we needed to add a competitive element to it to make it more interesting and get more people to show up. So we decided to make it what's called the Department Challenge, where each department or office is competing against each other to see who can collect the most amount of waste.
While participating groups became more competitive, they also became more mindful of recycling alternatives.
This facility sells the recyclables that are brought here, and we generate income that goes back to the base, be it through MWR, occupational health, safety, pollution prevention programs. So when you recycle, you have a direct effect on the amount of money that this base can use for great and wonderful programs that are enjoyed by all.
Participating groups vied for first place to receive the title for the departmental challenge and a pizza party. The team with the most,
Port Ops.
Seaman Sarah Villegas, Fleet Activities, Sasebo, Japan.
We head to Hawaii to wrap up this newscast, where members of the Coast Guard challenged the science and engineering skills of a group of students. The action played out in the pool.
2, 1, begin.
Students from around Hawaii worked in teams to steer remote-controlled robots through an underwater obstacle course. The U.S. Coast Guard hosted the robotics competition at its Sand Island base. It's part of a Defense Department outreach program to educate kids in science, technology, and engineering.
Keep giving her directions.
Several DoD agencies donated the robot kits, and the Coast Guard sent them to interested local schools.
It's very rewarding. We took 6 weeks to actually go through this whole process. 3 weeks was to brainstorm and actually design it. 2 weeks was to build, and the last week was just to, finish up.
The top basket is 1 point.
The program also gives kids a chance to think about putting their technical skills to use in a career with the U.S. Coast Guard. Whatever their future careers, the robotics competition gave the kids a fun way to learn about science, teamwork, and problem solving. Tech Sergeant Michael Jackson, Coast Guard Base Sand Island, Hawaii.
That's it for this newscast. From all of us here at AFM Pacific, thanks for watching.